it's the technology that's stressing me?
Yeah, it's everything. It's technology that has led us to the careers that we're in.
But some careers I feel like are about to go out of business. Whose fault is that?
Culture.
See? They did
We
it to
get bored.
themselves.
We get bored too easily.
Hey, Alexa, stop.
Yeah, Alexa, shut up.
Doggone it. All right, shoot. Now we're podcasting. All right, how's this feel? It feels good? You feel it?
So vibey.
All right, sweet. I'm about to do my intro, and we are going to rock and roll.
To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worry. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, no, you'll stand tall.
We're back on another episode of Stealing from Friends. A regular person had no idea who I was, but I went and asked her randomly, hey, I see you taking dope photos of this dope individual that we'll talk about later, and I would love to have you on my podcast because as creatives, a lot of us don't really focus on the business aspect of things a ton, which is fine, but you tend to maybe bottleneck yourself in maybe one space or one thing that you do really well and not knowing there's other things you can do in your space to also bring in additional income. So welcome today's guest, Miss Brooke from the great side of Arkansas, because Northwest Arkansas is amazing. I love Northwest Arkansas.
Me too.
All right, so thank you for thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to get right into it. Brooke, what do you do and all the good stuff? So tell me about who you are and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a graphic designer and photographer. I do that full time.
Mm-hmm.
I lead worship for my church.
Heard that.
I lead a group called Segway. It's a once-a-month gathering to meet new people in town.
General networking.
General networking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like ballpark stuff, just bullet pointed.
Yeah, we about to go into all of that. So I did notice after looking at your Instagram again, this morning. So you do worship, like do you play any instruments? You sing? What do you do?
So I started out just singing. I've been singing on stage since I was like 4.
Flex.
But a couple of years ago, I started learning piano. So
Okay.
I'm like, I've got all the chords down now. I just like have to learn all of the in-between stuff. So I do piano every Sunday.
Okay, and you're from Northwest Arkansas?
I'm from Fort Smith, which is like not, if you're from Fort Smith, you don't really say you're a part of Northwest
No,
Arkansas.
you don't. You're the stepchild.
But people outside of Arkansas don't really know that because Fort Smith is technically in the northwest part of Arkansas.
Technically speaking.
So,
So yes, and
yeah,
that's where you're
kinda.
from. Okay.
I mean, I lived in Fayetteville for a few years, so I'm very familiar with Northwest Arkansas, but I am currently located in Fort Smith.
Gotcha. For those that don't understand kind of the demographics of or the geology, is that right? That's the right word? Geography. Public education, you've done it again. Northwest Arkansas, where all the Walmarts, all the JB Tyson's, Hunts, all those folks are up there, whereas Fort Smith is just a little bit lower down, so a little bit more toward us, just so for point of reference. And I met you because you were doing photography, so how'd you get into that space?
Yeah, I started out at University of Arkansas, Fort Smith, doing graphic design. So that's like my first love. And it was in school that I met one of my friends who wanted me to take pictures of him in his like fashionista outfits that he was like putting on. Oh, now I can't even remember. There was like a website, lookbook.nu.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
No.
Anyway, super random. And I was like, I don't know how to use a camera, but I had like a point and shoot, from the time I was little. And I was always interested in photography, but had never gone anywhere with it. And so he was like, it's fine. It's really easy. I'll teach it to you. And so I started taking pictures.
He already had photography?
He already kind of knew it.
Okay.
Yeah. And had like a Canon, I don't know, T3i or something.
Something Rebel.
Yeah, exactly. And so I loved it so much during that shoot. I was like, I think I'm going to Best Buy and like getting a camera right now, And so it kind of just happened. And then I just fell in love with it and it started to become a passion. And then I started posting pictures of people that I was shooting and people were like, ooh, take my pictures.
Yeah.
Can you shoot my baby? Can you shoot my wedding? And then it just kind of took off.
Yeah.
And so,
That's so awesome. So were you doing adult things at the time when you started doing photography, or you're in college, you were already an adult, but you're like, I think I'm going to shift slightly and go into this, or you still did graphic design and photography?
So I went to school for 2 years for design, and then graduated with my associates, worked in the design field for 2 years.
Corporate real life America.
It was, I was working for a website company, and then I worked a little bit for a church, and then doing design, and then went back to school and got my bachelor's. And it was during that time that I met this friend and started learning more about photography. So then at that point, I was doing shoots, like paid shoots outside of school work and stuff, but my main priority was getting through school and getting my bachelor's. So I was working part-time at the school for design in the marketing department. So I was their student designer.
Were you picking up, like, were you doing the business side of the photography that you wanted to build up at that time? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it all started there. Like, I had no idea that it would have been something that I would have wanted to pursue long term to do full-time photography. But it was during those moments that I was learning the business side as well. And I didn't even realize I just kind of like fell into it, started figuring it out on my own, and then like asking, my friends who were in photography, and it just kind of happened. And then shortly after that, when I graduated, I moved to Fayetteville and got a job at a startup company. And so I was there, it was a startup. So I was their senior designer and photographer, but it was like my very first like real job after my bachelor's degree. And, it all just kind of slowly progressed into what it's become now, which is full scale. I mean, I'm running everything. But Unsplash had a lot to do with that as well. So I don't,
Shameless plug. Let's go ahead and put them in there. So you do stuff with Unsplash. Saw you're an ambassador for them.
Yeah.
You got anything for us? You got some discounts? Like, what can you give us from all that? Like,
being an ambassador, actually, like, it doesn't mean a whole lot other than like, I am a total proponent of Unsplash to everybody, even if you're not a creative, because it has taken over the world with stock photography in such a good way. Like, before I was even a contributor to Unsplash, I was a user. Like, I was downloading photos to use for different projects and stuff. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to post a photo of mine on here and just see if I can get a download. I had no idea if anyone would like my stuff.
Before you keep going really deep into that, explain what Unsplash is for those who don't know what Unsplash is.
Unsplash started out as a website that you could subscribe to that would give you 10 images a week. Free images, and you had no idea what they were going to be. It could be images of anything. Mostly people were doing landscape things and objects, like random objects. It turned into the leading stock photography site in the world, basically. So now anybody in the world can get free photos to use for personal or commercial use. So stock photography, if you type in like a picture of a girl eating fruit, I mean, it could be anything. And all these pictures are going to pop up from photographers all over the world. Now they have Unsplash Plus, which is a premium subscription where you get access to better photos, more specific photos, because there are creative briefs that are coming out for photographers who are involved.
For sure.
And so we have paid opportunities now through Unsplash Plus to make money. Yeah.
Man. So that's what we're going to be stealing today, y'all. We're talking about other revenue pieces. So we're definitely going to end up kind of coming back into that. So take me back just slightly a little bit more. So we're in Fort Smith. The guy told us, hey, I need you to learn this camera. He showed you the camera. You fell in love with it. But now you're in Fayetteville after doing your bachelor's. You're at a startup. And throughout this entire duration, you're still, taking your weekends or after work to go take photos of babies and dogs and weddings and cats and...
Yeah, I was doing a lot of photography for the company.
Okay.
So on my own time, I was doing pictures of my friends for fun, even for Unsplash, because that was really where my photography career took off. Because once I uploaded that one photo, I realized that people liked my work. And so I was like, oh, I want to be doing creative shoots all the time. So I was doing all of those shoots for free. I would be like, hey, you're cute. Let's take a picture, let's go do a photo shoot. Even if I didn't know them, or
like how I got you on my podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a people person. So I would just be like, hey, there's this site, and people would be like, what?
Exactly.
What are you posting my pictures to? And there's been a lot of that. But yeah, to answer your question, I was doing a lot of that on my weekends, at nights, after work, and just kind of fitting it in when I could.
Yeah.
But I was also doing, paid shoots for people and.
Heard that. So as you're starting up your photography spot, or for folks that are in photography, and then they may dabble on it a little bit here and there, but what can they do to actually start? Because they're at a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But they're like, man, I would love to. That's dope how she did that. And like you just mentioned, it was a creative shoot. It's something you put together because you wanted that for your portfolio, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And so what can other people do, or what should they do to be able to start doing
Yeah.
that?
In my mentorships, I get asked this a lot. And one of the biggest things that I remember about that particular time in my life is I would give myself projects.
Gotcha.
Like I would make up these projects or make up these shoots, these styled shoots, but I would do it with design as well. I would give myself like a creative brief basically of like, me and that same friend would sit down at a coffee shop and would be like, okay, we've got an hour. We're each making a logo for this kind of company, and we would each do our own thing and then show each other at the end. And it was just for fun, but it was also like, we could add that to our portfolio. And those types of things, like with the photo shoots and the design projects that like were not in school, that was what helped my portfolio stand out. So I got offered that job at that startup before I even graduated, when they came to the portfolio review, and my portfolio was one of the only ones that had anything outside of school projects. And I wasn't even doing that intentionally. This friend helped me a lot, and so that's why like now I want to help other people do that as well. Like have your portfolio stand out by doing different things, don't just do the kind of normal
the cliche. Exactly. Do you think Instagram is enough of a portfolio for creatives, or should they also have the sites, all the other things? What's your take on that?
Instagram and I have like a love-hate relationship because and I say it's because I'm busy, but it's also like, gosh, I don't know if I've never had to market super heavily for my business, because I've just been blessed with like people referring me or whatever. And so I haven't gotten a lot of business from Instagram.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it for me personally had been word of mouth. And then just Unsplash also ramped that up for me. But I think if you're just starting out, Instagram is a perfect place to start for your portfolio. I think if we get into a time in the world where social media goes away, I think it's so important to have a website.
Absolutely.
And so I am definitely fully on board for like having something outside of social media. And for people who, I don't know, you might have a different demographic for your target audience that may not have social media.
Exactly.
Which is a reality.
Absolutely.
And people who are looking for senior photography, a guy who isn't super interested about being on social media, but his mom is looking for a photographer and she's looking. So where's she going to go?
Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think having an established website is very important.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned one of the things that you've been blessed with was to have word of mouth, and to have something that's that great that makes client A want to tell client Z how great it was working with Brooke. You have to, I would assume, have pretty good customer service and have good vibes as you're out there doing the thing. So do you have any tips for folks to really kind of curate those types of, what would make somebody else also be recommended by word of mouth? Do you have any of those tips you found to be very valuable?
I think back to like, if we're talking about specifically photography, at the beginning of my career, I remember it feeling awkward. I'm a people person, so that part necessarily wasn't ever hard for me.
Okay.
It was posing the people and knowing, like, thinking that I had to do it a certain way, right? But like, if I was telling someone now, I'd be like, let yourself have like time to like go through the creative process during a shoot, because you're not, sometimes you're not getting that idea like right at the beginning, and maybe something's not working, but something else will, but you need to give yourself space to do it. Don't feel like pressured, because then when you feel pressured, you're going to be awkward, and the people are going to pick up on that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that is not going to make somebody want to like hire you again.
Facts.
If you're not making them feel comfortable in a shoot, like, and it's not I would hope it's not a prideful thing for me, but it's like something that I love hearing from my clients. Like, they're like, you made me feel so comfortable. You made me feel like I was a model, and like it was so easy with you and you were so fun to work with. It's like part of that is my personality as well. But part of it is like, I think about me being in their shoes legitimately.
Exactly.
I hate being in front of the camera. And people don't believe me when I say that.
I sure don't believe you.
It gives me, like, I'm probably breaking out in hives because like I get so nervous to be on camera. So I think if I was in front of somebody else's camera, like, how would I want to be treated? I want to be told exactly what to do. I want and not in a fake way, but I want to be told that I'm doing a great job, and like give me some relief that it's going okay.
Double tap my reassurance.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
So those are just a couple of things.
For sure.
And the client side, the business side, before and after a shoot, being professional, I think is a big thing that people will be drawn back to you. So, responding to texts or emails in a like timely manner.
Yeah. What's timely? Like
I
a week?
mean, no.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because think about what you expect from, and maybe that's different for everybody. I know as a creative, I have my phone on me 24/7 unless I'm asleep. You know what I mean? Or unless I'm doing a shoot.
For sure.
But like there's really no excuse other than like real life happening that like you can't get back to somebody,
right.
And even if you're waiting or someone's waiting on you to give them a quote, even you could even say like, hey, I'm going to get back to you with a quote in a couple of days, or give them like over communicating, I think is helpful for people to like feel respected because they're going to be giving you money.
That makes sense.
So it's an investment
for sure
to them. So invest in it with them is how I kind of think about it professionally. I'm
about to take you I kind of want you to go back to when all the business pieces weren't there initially, okay? As a creative, I'm about to give you a little scenario. As a creative, we do this project. We put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. For a videography side of it, I found this dope song. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like this new Diddy soundtrack? All right, so we send it over to the client. And the client tells us those words. It looks good. Oh, I like it. But how do you handle that, or how should creatives handle those things? Because at the end of the day, yes, you are creative. You feel like what you've done is like you've just birthed a new baby Jesus. But now the client is telling you, I kind of want to give that one up for adoption. Let's do a different one. Let's. What else you got?
The wrong child.
Yeah, I got the wrong baby. That's not my baby there. How do you handle that? How did you handle it? And what would you suggest?
I have a lot of thoughts about that. I think at the beginning, I may not have known how to handle that. So I would, I don't even know the word, but I would do anything for my clients, right? Like, which I still have a mindset of like, I want to make my client happy.
Absolutely.
Just like I did back then. Back then, without the business tools that I have now, it would have looked different.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I would have set any boundaries for what that would have looked like.
In regards like your style,
in regards to a lot of different things, because like if it depends on how I would have started that conversation for the project, right? Initially, before you go to the computer, before you take the photo shoot, before you do a video, before you do anything, you should be having multiple conversations with your clients. To brainstorm, get ideas of what, like I always ask like at the bare minimum to get like a Pinterest board of like inspiration of things that they like, things that they don't like. Because I'm like, I want to see where your brain goes of like what you're drawn to versus what you're not, to give me a little bit of like a, foundation if they're not sure. Because some people will be like, oh, I trust you, do whatever you want. But then they're not going to like it.
Right.
Because art is subjective.
That's right.
So a big thing is I would say not to take it personally, which is hard to do.
Absolutely.
Because like you were saying, it's your baby, it's your style, it's what you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into.
I done paid $15 for this or I guess for photography, preset. Y'all call them presets?
Presets, yeah.
I spent my $12 on this preset. What do you mean you don't like this?
But that happens, you know. But there's another part of that of if you're communicating before your project starts, during your project. They've seen your portfolio. They know what to expect, right? It's managing expectations before. So then when you're giving your deliverables, they should not be surprised at what they're getting. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like if there's any layer of surprise to that, it should only be like, oh my gosh, you blew it out of the water. Like, you know, because they already knew what you're capable of. They already knew what to expect with what they were going to get back. And so, yeah, I think it's a lot about, which is a general rule in life, like communicate.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard.
So, but would you say I need to put myself in a box or contain myself in a way? Like,
with your style?
Yeah. Let's say I'm more of a black and white photographer, or I shoot more light and airy or more moody. Do I, even though as photographers and, you know, creatives, we can do all of those different aspects, but maybe you just don't love it because maybe it changes your process up slightly. But you can do all these things. So should you post all of these things? And now you're really going to have to communicate to see what thing they saw to actually see what they want.
I think it depends on where you're at in your journey, because at the beginning I was doing a lot of different things and trying out a lot of different presets, you know, and I was changing my editing style with photography a lot. But I was figuring out who I was as a photographer and what I liked and what my, I don't know, style I think changes because it's trendy too, you know, like we're in a world that changes constantly. So to keep up with like trends, I think, is important to a certain degree, but then you have to add like what is different to you. So what I have found throughout the years is like the way I capture authentic moments is different than somebody else.
Got you.
You know? And so that really was the thing that helped me come into my niche is like, it wasn't about really my editing. It's the person in the photo and the emotion that I'm capturing during that photo shoot that is drawing somebody in to like want to hire me. And just the other day, I had a situation that's never happened to me in all of my years of being a creative. And I had a client reach out, a previous client who was so happy with my work 2 different times. She wanted to do another photo shoot, headshots, and she had messaged me on a Wednesday and wanted it that following Friday, so 2 days later. I just so happened to be available, and I said I was available at 9 a.m. You know, I got right back to her. And she was like, let me confirm, because she is a lawyer. And so wasn't sure if she had court that day. So I never heard back from her until Friday morning at 9:30. She's asking if I'm coming. And I said, I never heard back a confirmation from you, but I'm happy to do it in, you know, these days, you know, gave her different options.
You didn't try to bend the world backwards to be like, yeah, I'm headed up there now.
Absolutely. That's what I was talking about with boundaries, you know? And so that same day, she posts to her social media that she's looking for a photographer immediately. So she finds somebody else to take her photos. And do I get my feelings hurt? No, because I have other clients and that's her own choice, right? Well, what happens is she gets the photos back and she doesn't like them. So she reaches out a week later and she's like, help. You're a hard act to follow. You know? And so that's where I was going with, like, once you're finding who you are and your niche, like, that's what's going to, like, set you apart, where people are going to be like, you're a hard act to follow, you know, and you're going to hone in. And so at the beginning, it's going to look different than it is when you're kind of in the middle
when you're
of
in the groove,
knowing who you are and what you do. And exactly. So,
man,
it's okay to change it, though, at the beginning, you know, I think.
Well, so to that vein, then, if I am filming all these different things, and my perspective, I had got a business coach early. I got blessed and got somebody gave me some money to start my business, and I ended up getting a business coach. Probably the best decision ever I ever had. And one thing that I was doing at the time is, if you was to go on my Instagram, you would see a little bit of real estate in there. You would see some weddings. You would see when I was doing comedy sketches. You'd see all these different facets of stuff. And then he was like, Thomas, if I look at your page, bro, I don't know what the heck you do. So being that a photographer, videographers, we can do all these things. Do you think it's as important to niche down, or should you niche to a certain thing or only show a certain thing?
No, I think as a creative, it's amazing to be able to be multifaceted. I think I learned that back in my last 2 years of college, that what set me apart as a designer was that I also knew photography and a little amateur videography, right? So if someone was going to hire me, they get more for their money.
That's right.
You know? So I think it's if you have a website, if you have a social media page that you're marketing to, of showing people who you are, like if someone's looking from the outside, they should be able to figure out what you do. So it's clearly communicating, this is what I do. I am a marketing agency and I do photography, design, social media, videography. You like listing out whatever it is, you know, and showcasing those things. It's like, no, you don't have to just be you can. If you want to just be a photographer, just be a photographer. But if you have multiple things that you're good at and you want to, like for me, I have a personality where I like to switch things up. And that's what I love about being a creative, because every day can look different, you know, and it's not like boring.
Dang.
So
and then also you mentioned earlier, you personally, you don't use Instagram as more of your sizzle reel to show stuff. You more so use for like just your personal, or if you had a dope shoot, you'd put that on there. Is that right?
Yeah, I am just in conversations right now of like, I feel the need to post to my Instagram more with photography, but I'm even like, why do I feel the need to do that? But it's, we're at a stage, I think, in our world where marketing has become a luxury item for a lot of people financially, just because of our economy and things like that. And so business over the last year has been a little bit slower than it had been in the past. And I think, well, I've never had to go hard at marketing myself. And so now I feel the need to do that. And I want to see if it actually works, if I really put the time in to do it. So I'm kind of in a new wave right now of like, I'm probably going to be like utilizing that a little bit more. But in years past, yes, I've gone through ebbs and flows where I'll post consistently and then some.
It's another job.
It really is a full-time job. People don't get that.
For real.
Figuring out how the feed needs to look and like.
Especially from y'all, like photographers that are really goated, and if they got a dope aesthetic, typically I'm either seeing that they are on social media and their aesthetic is just like, wow, it's just dope.
Well, and I wonder if like on this part of the podcast, you can do like a little scroll of like my tributary studio.
Absolutely.
Because you can see that over the last couple of years have tried to like incorporate design and photography in a really aesthetically pleasing way. And so it's like I'm posting pictures that I've taken, but I'm also posting logos I've done, or, you know, trying to figure out how to post like a website that I've done or quotes about design, you know, and kind of utilizing social media in a different way. And so it's a full-time job.
A
lot of strategy.
I was about to say kudos to you, because one of the things I tell people all the time, because obviously because we take photos and videos of homes and then videos of agents, we'll always get their onesie twosies. Hey, do you do kids photography or seniors? And I tell people this all the time. I was like, I don't have the eye for photography, bro. And then they'll see some stuff. I just can't say, all right, Miss Brooke, I just need you to turn your head this way. Okay, and pow. But you don't do that.
Capacity for that.
I don't just even know if I have the eye to do it. Like I'll take it back and or I'll show a client after a small iteration. Like if I'm doing headshots in the studio, it's completely fine. And I've gotten to the point now where I can say, oh, hey, Brooke, make sure your hair is so-and-so. I remember you said you didn't like that.
Yeah.
But if I'm out and about, like if an agent is shooting out at a house and we're doing outside the studio stuff, my anxiety goes up just slightly.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is turning into more of a actual styled shoot at this point. And I'm like,
well, when people are involved, it adds another layer of that for sure. Yeah.
And especially trying to make people feel comfortable. But do you got some tips? Like if you could say, hey, here's the 3 things you need to do when you're posing a person, or you don't necessarily do that whole structured pose.
Yeah. I would say let Pinterest be like your best friend.
Okay.
Don't use Pinterest or Instagram as like, I think we've gotten into the groove of just totally comparing ourselves to everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Which is like normal. It's human. But instead of comparing yourself when you're seeing other photographers, like let it be something that you can use as a resource.
Gotcha.
So I would say using other photographers as a resource and like copy their poses. Like that's okay to do. I have done that
Or steal it, baby.
so many times. Like, yeah, steal it from your friends. Exactly. I love that.
See, I did that.
I
See,
did. I know, shameless plug. I love it. But yeah, I use Pinterest and Instagram to this day to look for new poses. If I'm kind of.
But how are you using it? You're like, do this.
Oh, sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll screenshot things from Instagram and be like, hey, like I'm going to use you guys as a guinea pig today. I'm going to try a couple new poses. Are you guys okay with that? And they'll be like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like we'll do whatever.
Well, to be honest, you just made it feel like I couldn't say no anyway. You just brought the energy anyway.
And that's, again, it's like communicating.
Yeah.
It's how you if you come at it kind of like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I screenshotted this thing and we're going to try it. It's
guys
like
think about
that makes
this?
them feel like nervous and weird, rather than it just being like this thing that's fun and new and, we're trying something new together and it's going to be really cool. And so, yeah, I'll like show them and be like, this is where his hand's at. Like, we're going to play around and see what fits for you guys.
Okay.
And so I would say that that's like a big part of that. Yeah.
Do you do any pre-gaming for a shoot? Like, do you feel like you have to do all this pre-production? Not the tequila, yeah. Not shout out to Don Julio. But do you feel like you have to do any of these major prepping before shoots?
Major prepping, no. I think it's more because as I've matured and also just, I don't even know, just my experience, I guess, I don't get necessarily nervous before a shoot, so I don't feel like I have to prepare for my skill, but I'm preparing mentally.
Okay.
So mentally and physically to be there sometimes is a bit of like I have more anxiety as a 34-year-old, than I did in my 20s, or.
Don't point at me. I'm not 20. I'm 32. Like,
no, I'm just saying in general, like, and so like I have certain like music that I'll listen to before or do, I don't know, just like breathe before, or things like that.
Because your process doesn't necessarily change. You're doing the same thing you normally do.
Well, and preparation goes into like choosing a location, communicating to that. If there is a location that is not out in nature that I have to like communicate to someone, making sure those things are like done way beforehand, like not the day of, communicating to my clients about where we're shooting and what time, and even keeping them informed when I've left my house, hey, I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Like, whatever that looks like. But so those are the things that I do now. Before, I think I probably would have, or not probably, I would have spent time on Instagram and Pinterest, even up to like right before my shoot, looking at poses or, things to just like prepare for my skill or like, I don't know, but also, I mean, preparing is just like physical preparing for like making sure your batteries are charged and making sure you have plenty of memory cards. Like, what if your memory card just like totally, poops out on you? Then what?
Girl, hey, what's today? Friday?
The 13th.
Oh, Friday the 13th.
I know.
Now, you put two and two together in my head now. That's going to be in the back of my mind now. Tuesday, I was in a place called Flippin', Arkansas. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's up like by Mountain Home, Mountain View, up on that side of town. Obviously, from my home in Bryant to Flippin' was 3 hours and 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I usually prep here before I leave, especially if I'm going to go home and just drive straight there. I get all the way there, 0 SD cards, not a micro, not nothing. I'm like,
was there a Best Buy?
There was a
Walmart?
a Dollar General.
Did they have any SD
They
cards?
did.
No
They did. They had
way.
2 SD. Oh my gosh! Shout out to Dollar General. They had 2.
That's a
32.
miracle from Jesus,
Dude. I was like, woo!
That's crazy.
And it was micro SD that had the. He was like, well, we only have the small ones. I was like, let me just see the box, because I'm like, all right, my camera clearly didn't just take micros, and it had the little slot. There was nothing in my truck. I know I could have dropped a SD card around this truck somewhere. Well, nothing. I was like, hey, you mind if I go to the Dollar General and just go, I need to grab something to drink real quick? And she's like, yeah, if it's right up the road. It's like 20 minutes up the road.
What would you have done?
I've done that before on
Really?
a few actual real estate shoots, and I've gotten really, really goated with my cell phone. Really, like I've left my tripod sometimes, and I would have to use just my gimbal to
Yeah.
hold stable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty resourceful and
Yeah.
innovative, but like my other guy Edwin, I don't want to put him in those situations to experience that, but I do. Like I want you to learn to be resourceful.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to have to do it at
That
the
way.
expensive. Yeah. Man,
Right.
so I just always like double pre-prep now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, gotta do my checks. Like I did with weddings, I'd lay all my stuff out.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, all right,
You just
well,
have like a checklist, and eventually it just becomes like a natural kind of
Second
second
nature.
thing. Yeah.
exactly. Now with doing photography, like you mentioned, unless you're doing this active marketing on Instagram or social media, wherever your platform is, you're going to still need to generate business, and if not business, other ways to generate revenue. So you talked about Upsplash, and we talked about it briefly at first, but how'd you get connected with? You got connected with them, or you found out about them through design initially?
So, a friend in graphic design, when I was in school, told me about Unsplash.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, I don't even know if Unsplash knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Like like I said, they were giving like 10 photos, a week or something. And he was like, just get on there and, see what they're, what it's about.
So what were you using it for initially then?
To see what stock photography like photos they
just
would have,
getting the
like
randos.
random, because we would try to find all of the like more authentic stock photos for like school projects,
Okay.
other than iStock, because iStock was like all the like really posed, like
Got you.
super stark white
Mm-hmm.
and like not not authentic to me, not
Okay.
emotional, not intentional,
Gotcha.
And so we were trying to find any and all of the random websites that we could find of like useful resources,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was video footage, photography, music,
Yeah.
Sound clips for projects, for motion design projects or whatever. So he had come across Unsplash, and I was like, I'm just going to see what it's about, So then I like was subscribed to the weekly thing, and then it just kind of started progressing. And that was in that was in like 2013, and it was 2015. It wasn't until 2015 that like people were starting to upload photos, which I don't think that was. I don't even know if that was happening at the very beginning or if it was people on their team that were shooting and releasing those photos. Because I know one of the girls was a photographer, so I'm sure some of it was her stuff. But anyways, once people in the world started uploading photos, you could only upload a certain amount at a time.
Okay.
And then I remember, so I uploaded a photo, and then what was your question initially? Like what about Unsplash?
Yeah, what was it for initially? Like what'd you use it for? And I'm trying to kind of go into how you got to make money through it.
So initially it was to see, I guess mentally, to see if anybody liked my stuff.
Okay.
Like
are you're not getting likes though on it?
You hold on, because there's a progression here
Okay.
of Unsplash, because the way it started versus what it is now is literally like it's
night and day.
180.
Okay.
So at the beginning I was just using it to see what stock photos I may potentially be able to use for a school project.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my only desire to
Yeah.
use it. Then it was, people are uploading photos now. I have become kind of someone who takes good photos.
So you like to say.
I like my stuff. So maybe someone else would like my stuff, And I'm like, let's just see. So the first, you started to, like, when I uploaded that first photo, I can see how many views and how many downloads it was getting.
Got you. Okay.
And so then after overnight, I was like, oh my gosh, there was
200
thousands, there was thousands and thousands of downloads. And then I was like, whoa, but I wasn't getting paid. It was this like, I was chasing that feeling of knowing that hundreds of thousands of people around the world were seeing
Like my
and
stuff.
using my photo. Like that alone was enough for me to keep taking random pictures of random people or my friends and upload them to this random site that no one knew about. And well, some people knew about it because they were downloading my stuff, and it just hadn't taken off where I was at yet,
Yeah.
And so then I started uploading more and more photos, and eventually, after a couple of years, so that was 2015. I was the first person on Unsplash to post pictures of people.
Okay.
So people, like I said, were doing landscapes or pictures of objects,
you.
or just random stuff. And I started posting pictures of people, and it was received very well. And so then in 2017 or end of 2016, so it was about a year into it.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit longer. Anyways, I'm not really good with timelines, but Unsplash started collaborating with different brands. So brands like Google would come to them and be like, basically they'd be like, we're Google, we see what you're doing, like, all the SEO and stuff in the background of like how Unsplash has taken off.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want to do a collaboration with some of your photographers for our products. So they called it Unsplash for Brands. And they chose like 5, I think, photographers on Unsplash, which at that point there's thousands and thousands of photographers uploading their work. So we got chosen to do projects for companies like Google, Samsung. I laughed whenever you showed me that external, because I did a Samsung project.
Oh, on that hard drive.
With that hard drive. Yeah. And so I like had to take those and these mini SD cards with people and do a lifestyle shoot, product photography for Unsplash 4.
I'd assume you really have to think outside the box for something like...
Oh, you would be surprised.
Yeah.
You should see some of the pictures I got, like of some girl like holding an SD card like in her mouth while she's switching another one out of a camera.
Oh, that is clever.
Like so many things.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the collaboration started in 2017. So that's when I started working for Google and Samsung and Microsoft. And they would tell you, basically, we have this much money, we're going to pay you. This is the brief. Do you want it?
Just like that.
Just like that. And it was only like a certain few photographers at the beginning that were, which I still feel like it's a little bit exclusive, but they've opened it up now where Unsplash Plus is that premium subscription, right? So all these briefs that are going out now, like it's a totally a different layer, because now as a photographer, any photographer has the availability or
you have the tools.
You could potentially be making money from Unsplash if you wanted to. So you get on their Slack channel and get signed up for the emails. They send out briefs monthly, and you shoot for whatever briefs you want. You upload your photos. If they're submitted, they pay a certain amount per photo.
Who is the they?
Unsplash.
Oh, dang.
It's a small little team in Canada.
Dang.
Yeah.
So your they isn't Thomas getting on Unsplash. Oh, I saw Brooke had a dope photo. I want to download that. Or am I free to download it, period?
No. So that's my only, like, if I had any rub with Unsplash, it's probably that. Because I have 2+ billion, 2 billion plus views. And
with
over
the letter B, y'all.
B. And and that's like, I'm proud of myself for that.
Yeah.
Like 2 billion, more than 2 billion views alone, 10 million or 11 million downloads. If I would have been paid per download, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm still not being paid per download. So I stopped uploading photos to my Unsplash feed several years ago.
Got you.
Because I was like, I'm not in a place. I'm like a professional. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And I'm not going to be doing this work for free anymore. But all of those photos are already on Unsplash getting downloaded. People take photos from Unsplash and put them on other stock photography sites to get downloaded, and so they're already out there. So I wasn't gonna like remove all my photos, and I love seeing like all my statistics go up and stuff. So that's still something that is really cool for me, and that it started so long ago, and it's been such a pivotal like part of my photography career. And they really did like help get me started, with a lot of the big brands. And
so other people can get on there and do some of these micro projects with brands like your Lulu's or your Nike or
No, so the brands thing is totally separate. You kind of
Okay.
you have to be asked by the Unsplash team to do
Tracking.
those particular like brand
Okay.
collaborations. So if they see a photographer that they're like, hey, like this one would be a really good one for this project.
Mm-hmm.
But the briefs that they send out monthly are like in a studio
Mm-hmm.
or holiday.
Yeah.
You know, very like general briefs, and it's not for a brand. They're just general stock photos that you would be taking that would fit that brief, and they have like some examples of like photos in there of stuff that they're looking for, you know.
Okay, so the brands part is different from
Separate.
the briefs. Okay,
Yeah.
so unless y'all goated like Brooke, they ain't even gonna talk to y'all about the brands. But the briefs is where we can make some additional money.
Yes, yeah.
Tracking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not a lot of people know that right now, because it's like, I don't know if they necessarily advertise for that or anything, because like if you're not really in it,
Yeah.
I don't know how you would know unless someone else tells you, or you use Unsplash and then you go in and look at all their blogs or whatever, you know, then yeah, people like me are like sharing the word, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I want people to succeed, and I want people to, you know, to see that they can make money from their work,
Absolutely.
you know, and so.
A lot of people get caught up in the rat race of doing like a creative piece of it. And like you mentioned, like, hey, when you have to pivot because either times were slow or you utilize a service so much, how else can it bring you value or you see more value in it? I don't know. I just feel like a lot of photographers or creatives in general just don't go the extra space to either hone in on their customer service piece, maybe help with their processes. Because you mentioned Slack. I realize not a ton of... I feel like nobody knows about Slack either, unless you've been in the game for a minute.
They're like, what's Slack?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, and the creative agency that I worked, the startup that I worked for, used Slack as our communication
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have known about it, I don't think, you know, had I not used it back then. So then when Unsplash got on it, I had already had it, you know, and they told me to join the Slack. And but yeah, so it's definitely something. I'm not even sure if I would know though the particulars of how, like, if there was a random photographer listening to this and they're like, "Ooh, I want to do that." Like, I think that I would have to invite somebody to the Slack maybe
to
for
get all
them
the
to
info
even
about...
get the info of getting the briefs. You
Dang.
know, so it is kind of a little bit exclusive.
Yeah.
I'll have to find all of those specifics though and like get them to you for
Don't worry,
follow
y'all.
up.
We're gonna get her Instagram and all her contact. We'll make sure y'all got her information. I got 3 quick questions before we rock and roll and get on out of here. So thank you for something. You gave me way more game than what I was hoping to get.
Yeah,
so
sorry,
this has
I'm a
been awesome.
talker.
No, this is awesome. This is really awesome. First question, new photographer starting to get in. One of the questions that I got on my, I think it was YouTube, shout out to whoever you were on there. But how do I know what to price and package my stuff? How do I know what to price and what to put in the package? As general as that is I wanted to give it to you because you're a photographer.
Yeah. I just on the way here from Fort Smith to Little Rock, like called the friend who got me started in photography and was asking him about this kind of stuff
Yeah.
too, because I feel like it depends on the location of where you're at, which sucks.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, Unsplash just reached out again and wants me to do this project for a hair product company, right? And that company is like, we're giving you $3,000 for 25 images. 25 images. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Come on with it.
But then you have somebody in Fort Smith and you tell them my mini shoot is $300 for 30 minutes. And you're going to get over 100 images, which not a ton of photographers do for
Yeah.
a mini shoot. I tend to overshoot, which is just how I work.
Yeah.
Every photographer's different, right? And so for me, I tell them that and they like $300, you know? And I'm like, but that is the world we're living in of being in a small town versus being somewhere even an hour away like Fayetteville or Bentonville, you know? So it depends on where you're at. your clientele, who your target audience is. So I can't tell you a certain price to charge and what you want to include in that package, because that's something you're going to have to figure out on your own, of like experience and like what people are saying. Honestly, like you have to take into account like what people are saying yes to. If you need money and you need to pay your bills and you're charging $500 and no one's saying yes to your shoots, reevaluate.
Maybe take a dab a little bit.
Reevaluate. So I think that there's a constant reevaluation that we have to do as creatives. One, because I never want to break someone's bank, because I know how that feels.
Absolutely.
And I'm never going to be that person.
Yeah.
And taking into account how much work you need, where you're at, what you're what you're offering. You know, if you're giving 5 photos versus 50 photos, I don't, just make it worth your time, but also make it worth your client's money.
Yeah.
Like don't just like charge $500 because you think you think that's what you should charge. Like make it make sense for both of you. Don't undersell yourself, So if you're a bit experienced, if you're a year or two in even and you have a pretty good portfolio started and it's like, oh, I'm still charging $50 a shoot. No, no, that's a waste of
How do you know though?
I think that's where really good community comes in. Okay. So if you're a photographer, you should be having other photographer friends who you bounce things off with. Yeah. Like send your work to people who are not going to like beat around the bush. Like tell me if my work is good. Tell me what could change. Tell me like
get out of photography.
Yeah. And like honestly though, because I had this conversation with one of my professors one time in graphic design. Yeah. There was a person in my class who like just wasn't getting it. And I'm like, when is someone going to tell this person that like that might not be the career field for them,
right.
And it's like, well, that's, they didn't feel like that was their place. And I'm like, whose place is it?
Right.
If it's
who
not
takes
your,
it?
Who takes that responsibility? Like to be like, take something that you're good with and run with it, and, but anyways, I would say it's very important to have a good community of creatives to like be honest about your work. Don't take it personally. Like, unless
it's easier said than done though. Like, I just put all this work into this, Brooke, and now
it's happened to me though.
Yeah.
And that's how I got here.
That's right.
You have to be able to be willing to grow and have the capacity to listen to people and not just like be too prideful to stay in a place that isn't going to help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah. God, that is... we got 9 minutes here, so I'm going to ask these last quick fire questions here. So getting into photography off rip, what industries would you say I should go into? Or what would be the most lucrative versus not as lucrative, but maybe just fun?
Yeah.
Because I know a dude who does just headshots and like for these corporate places, and obviously that's not the most fun thing in the world. They're probably suited up, a little bit snooty or whatever the case may be, but he makes a lot of money from it. But I know it's not fun.
Might be fun for him.
No, it ain't fun for him. It ain't fun for him.
So he just likes the money, which is fine. Like you have to figure out your goals too. Like that's a part of it. Like if you're just trying to make the most money, like for the least amount of work, like maybe it's headshots for you. Maybe it's corporate headshots because corporations have more money to spend than the mom and dad down the road with 5 children.
Right.
So if you're not going to want to get into family photography probably,
Do you have to think about what brings you fulfillment? Like, is it going to matter that much?
Yeah. But if you want to not wake up and hate your life every day, and I don't know about this guy, it might not matter to him because he has enough money that he's not worried that his 9 to 5 just like is so mundane and boring to him. That would literally kill my soul.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to live like that. So like I love making people happy and like the joy on people's faces when I take their photos and they feel like they love them and it's like it brings me joy. So like that's a part of it for me that I think about. Another lucrative part is wedding photography, I would say, but it's definitely a lot more work than like some other types of photography. you do real estate, so you can probably speak on that, which I feel like could be lucrative.
Well, you got to do a whole lot. Like agents are a bit more old school. You gotta break into that because they're almost like nothing necessarily changes from a photo for homes.
Yeah.
And so they're like if nothing's broke from that industry or from who they normally use, they typically don't fix it.
Yeah.
And so I have to go in and shake things up, baby.
Yeah.
And that leads to my other question. Do you still do work for free? Would you recommend doing work for free?
No, never.
Never recommend it?
Unless I decide that I want to do a shoot for free. If it comes from my brain and I want to bless somebody with a free shoot, that is my prerogative. That's how I run my business. And if there's a situation where like I feel the need to do that for whatever reason, absolutely I will do it. And I have done that and will continue to do that. But like if someone's expecting that, or I mean, what's the other alternative? Like that would be someone expecting that, and that is
Blasphemy.
just not gonna happen on my
Not
terms.
over here.
Like it's not gonna happen in my
over
life. There have been a lot of situations that I've come across with people who want to give you
I'm gonna give you this exposure though, Brooke. I'm gonna give
exposure
you this
and clout, or they
exposure.
think that there's some big deal, you know, and I'm going to be blessed to get to work with them. And I'm like, you need to check yourself, because I'm not going to go around talking about my accolades.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not the type of person I am. And I don't want to work with people who expect things like that from other creatives.
Yeah.
I think it's disrespectful,
So
to be honest.
So you're saying getting paid in exposure shouldn't be a thing?
Absolutely not.
When does that make sense to do it for free though?
I did that at the beginning because I was just starting.
Okay.
And I said yes to everything, which now looking back, I don't regret.
No doubt.
I would do that again, same way I did it, because I didn't know anything
Exactly.
at the time. So I wanted to soak up anything that I could. I wanted to learn everything from other creatives. I would go ask other photographers to go with them on shoots and shoot for
Ooh,
free.
that's a
You know,
plug, yeah.
like, and I mean, I did so much. I would just go and ask random corporations too to take pictures, and I would offer to do it
Yeah.
for free. I was just starting out, you know, and if they're looking for some free photos, it's like hard to say no to.
Exactly.
You know, so if you're building your portfolio, absolutely do that. I think it makes sense in that time of life.
Perfect. And then for my last two questions here, so you primarily shoot. We talked about this earlier. You primarily shoot natural.
I do shoot natural light.
Shoot natural.
Yeah, 90% of the time.
What should somebody is it because you didn't have the money initially to get all the extra fancy stuff, or you just like the look of that? And what should somebody consider one versus the other, studio or light flash or whatever?
I think there's benefits to having both.
Okay.
I think it started out as a personal preference because, and this isn't like a diss to studio photography is amazing.
Yeah.
Like so amazing. You can do a ton in a studio. I didn't have the money at the beginning to have a studio set up, you know, lights and all the things. It's expensive.
Right, no doubt.
And to have a space to do that, I still don't have my own space, you know, to do that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be able to if I wanted to. So I would rent out from a studio if I ever needed to do a studio shoot, which still makes sense for where I'm at.
Yeah.
I also, personal preference, again, it's nothing against studio photography because, again, I love it. But to me, where I shine is bringing people in the elements, and it fits the emotive photography that I shoot.
Ooh, that's a college word. What was that word? Emotive?
Emotive. It's just like, you know, it's
It fits the.
it's bringing out emotion.
Okay.
Right. So like the photography that I want to, like, that's a goal of mine, right? Is like, I want someone to see photos that I take and like feel something.
Maybe like, dang,
I want
girl.
them to feel
Ooh.
something. I want them to feel in love, or I want them to feel really good about themselves, or, you know, feel bright or whatever, feel moody. Like there's so many emotions, you know, that you can portray in a photo. And I feel best that I can get those types of emotions out in the elements.
Yeah.
For some reason. That's just how it's been So
All right, I'm about to hit you with your last one, which is a doozy, and I'm gonna give you every bit of 2 seconds to think about how you're gonna answer this. Let me know when you are ready.
oh no.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Well, I don't even know the question.
I know you don't.
Oh, then I'm ready.
Oh, say less. All right, so let's say a family sees a photographer online. A lot of the photographers or a lot of the talent or subjects, clients that this particular photographer captures are of one demographic. And they're like, they may like her style or whatever, but what I tried to make it corporate. I'm not even gonna make it corporate. All right, so I got a female photographer. She's dope. She's goated. But most of the people that she shoot, because of her location, are all white people. And the presets she used, really bright and airy, looks really nice, looks amazing. But let's say there's a black family that sees that and they can't necessarily
Relate.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they may love her as a person because maybe she pushes out other content. Like, oh, she is so nice, so fun, so personable. But I don't see anything there.
Yeah.
What can someone do to show that they can also portray that? Because skin tones are different and all this other stuff. But
That's a big conversation. I have a lot of thoughts on that would not fit into like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But this is a bigger conversation for like outside of just the creative world.
Gotcha.
Because I am not going to shoot a black family just to have a token
A
black
on
family
my portfolio,
on my
yeah.
This is the same thing in church. I'm not going to hire it's where your heart is, right? I want to shoot people.
yeah.
I want to portray and capture people's love.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't
Yeah.
look one way.
Right.
That looks multi different like ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and I don't know your friend.
For sure.
And that's not
No,
a
this is
judgment.
just more
It's not
scenario.
a judgment for like that one person. I would say that seems to me to be a reflection of your life, like your life.
Got you. Break
How
that down.
you live your life, right? So like if
Do
all
it.
of your friends look the same and act the same and talk the same and do the same things, like I just don't think that that's how we were meant to live life.
For sure.
But I think that that's touchy for some people.
No doubt.
And I think, yeah, I just think I want to in photography, I want to showcase people across the board.
Yeah.
And I think that we should be doing that.
Preach to the choir.
So,
Few fun things about you. So somebody seeing this and they just like, you know what? She's an okay person, but this is really why I decided to work with Brooke. A couple of things you mentioned that we both have in common is karaoke. I love karaoke. You said you're halfway decent,
Just a
but you
little.
also sing. So that's people that sing in karaoke, people that can actually
You're
sing.
part of the problem.
They should not be doing no karaoke.
Then what am I supposed to do?
You can sing
I'm
on
just supposed
Sundays.
To sit there and listen and watch people have fun
You
doing
should
karaoke.
be happy that we are not doing as great.
I'm
as
gonna
you
be
do.
I'm gonna be in the middle of it, having fun with everybody.
You're just like, that's not even a G minor. They so went A
No.
flat on that. Ugh.
I would not be able to even do that. No.
So, what do you do for fun when you're not capturing families and photos and things?
Yeah, I do a lot of karaoke, like
Okay.
weekly.
Okay.
So, like we have a karaoke crew that like goes around. So that is a big part of my life. And then, I mean, I love to watch movies. I love riding motorcycles.
Legit?
Yeah.
Ooh. You want to buy one? I got one.
I have one. Yeah. I'm actually trying to sell it.
Me too.
I like to do a lot of different things. I'm like the one that's like always down for an adventure.
Uh-huh.
So I'll do a lot of things like hike or go to the lake. Yeah, I'm just down for whatever, really.
Heard that. Are you always bringing your camera on with you when you
No.
go out and do stuff? Really? Okay, so you separate. Like,
I
hey,
used to do that.
hey
yeah.
Brooke, you can bring your camera.
No, yeah, like now if people like, I'm like, no, if you want to do a photo shoot, we'll have to like
Yeah.
schedule it. Like this is my night for fun.
Yeah.
But I am the one that will like capture things even like on my phone.
For sure.
Like I do take a lot of pictures and videos on my phone because I like to have memories,
No
you
doubt.
know, and things like of what I'm doing. So
Heard that. And where can somebody go and find to either maybe get in contact with you to just schedule? Like, do you do consultations or what do you do to? Or when at this point are people booking you knowing they want to book Brooke? Like,
I mean, it depends on the person. If somebody doesn't really know me and they wanted to like chat, I would love to have a conversation. So I would feel free. I mean, I would tell anybody to feel free to call me. My website is tributarystudio.co. I'm also on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Tributary Studio.
And she checks her DMs, y'all. She checks her DMs.
I do. And yeah, call me or just send me a DM or a text, email. It's all on there. So my personal Instagram is Brooke Ann Cagle. So
heard that. And then last point, if you can give one tidbit of advice for any creative just starting out in this space, and I would love for you to just talk to them directly there. What advice would you give them?
Any creative. Oh, that's a hard one because if you're starting out, I feel like you have a lot of fear, and I would say don't fear anything. Just do what you want to do and have fun with it and figure it out as you go. And you don't have to have everything figured out right at the beginning. So take your time, give yourself grace to figure it out one day at a time, and you'll do big things.
Man, I appreciate you being here, Brooke. And so weirdly, she was talking about how you can do the free thing to just go and just, as you're starting out doing the stuff, to just ask folks like, hey, we don't have to Jeffrey Dahmer the situation, you know, because you're doing photography. Yeah, don't be weird about it. But hey, I got this thing. I want to do this thing, and I think you'd be a great fit for this thing. And so I really do appreciate you being on here today. But before we leave, I want y'all to know a couple things here real quick. Now, when stealing is foundational. Anybody can steal. But if you're going to steal from anybody, make sure you do it from your friends. Why? Because they're right there. They're close. They wouldn't expect it. And so if you have any questions at all about the photography side, all that stuff will be down in the description. Make sure you do all the other stuff you're supposed to do, like the liking, the subscribing, and all that good stuff. And don't forget, stealing just comes natural. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace. And cut. That was amazing.
That was so fun.
To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, no, you'll stand tall.